March and April 1945. Fire raids by Boeing B-29 superfortresses on Tokyo begin, and large areas are devastated. Estimates of the dead range from 84,000 to as high as 200,000. Japanese survivors on Iwo Jima launched the last banzai attack with only 216 prisoners taken out of the garrison of 21,000. Japan stages 10 massed kamikaze attacks on the U.S. fleet off Okinawa, sinking 20 ships and damaging 157. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt dies of a cerebral hemorrhage at the age of 63. Vice President Harry Truman is sworn in as our 32nd president. Soviet troops fight their way into Berlin. The U.S. First Army links up with Soviet forces at the River Elbe. British and Americans reach Belsen and Buchenwald concentration camps. As they attempt to escape into Switzerland, Mussolini, his mistress, and his closest fascist cohorts are captured by Italian partisans and executed. Adolf Hitler commits suicide along with his wife, Eva Braun, whom he had married in his Berlin bunker the previous day.
USS LST 491, North Pacific. I know it has been a long time since you have last heard from me. Well, it was very bad news we received here on the ship day before yesterday. It was a little over an hour before we got the news. I can't say I have ever had anything make me feel worse than when I heard it announced about the president. Sure took me by surprise. I could feel little needles and pins sticking me all over when I heard it. At first, it was hard to believe and seemed impossible that such a great man could die at a time when he was needed so very much. You can never realize how much a person means until it is too late to show that you do realize it. His name will be mentioned in history books far more oftener than anyone. Not only the people living under the laws of this government, but also the people who fought and lived under other flags. I haven't gotten any mail for nearly a month and don't expect any for almost another month. Has Dale ever found his ship? Maybe it would do me some good to find his ship if he is on it. I would be very disappointed to find it not boarded by him. Of course, I'm not saying I will ever see it, but my hopes are high. From what I heard from Melvin, he is or was in North Africa.
It's on the 12th of April, 45.
It was Dad's birthday.
Yeah. And I was halfway across the Pacific going to Inuiatat. And Roosevelt died. It was about an hour after he died that we got word on the radio.
Well, I was very glad to get some of the news, but there were other parts that weren't so good, such as Nick becoming a sailor. Got the sad news about FDR within a couple of hours after it happened. Just can't get letter writing on my mind tonight. Too much of something else, you know what. If you still get late news, I'm still alright and everything going strong. Don't let nothing worry you.
This morning, we held memorial services for Roosevelt. Nearly all hands turned out to show their respect to the late president. Beginning the 1st of July, I will not collect the extra money for being mail clerk. I'll hold on to the job, for it is one of great interest when the mail does come in. I'll be sure to get all my mail, too. My time at sea has any of Dale's beat now. I still think he should have a little duty on an LST, just to see what it is like. Maybe he would like it. The one big thing I don't like about it is the thought of what we will have to go through once we get there. The way time is now, you're getting up by the time we go to bed. I know that sounds deep, for I can't hardly figure it out. My first class rating went into effect the 1st of March. Guess I'm about as high as I'll ever go in this man's Navy. It won't be long before I will be drawing the 5% increase in pay for being in the service for 3 years. I'll bet the farming is in full swing by now. Sure wish I was there plowing some corn.
Well, I'll tell you how that is. Being mail orderly, I knew every sailor's girlfriend's name and their parents, and who got letters from who. And it was just a family. It was just a family, but they still called everybody by their last name. We didn't talk because people didn't know what we were talking about. We had a different language, and what they did. There's things we'd talk about. And anyhow, if we did talk, they wouldn't believe us. If we told what we saw, there would nobody believe us. Even today, you meet young people on the street and ask them if they know what an LST is. No, they never heard of it. There's only one left. And they built 1,051 LSTs.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And just from 42 to 45. They had all mostly inland.
That's like the Kaiser ships.
Yeah.
I went from San Francisco to Hollandia, New Guinea on one.
CVEs.
Yeah.
They took Kaiser ships and put a flat top on them and
Yeah.
called them jeeps and sent them to Japan with airplanes on. There's one LST left, and it's down Evansville, the 325. It was in Normandy along with my ship. We traveled together. I communicated with her on the radio, but they give them away or sunk them or whatever. And that ship's in good shape. The volunteers has really built it up. The deck in the tank deck looks like porcelain. They've got so many coats of paint on and cleaned up. But I'm not interested. I've gone down there 4 or 5 times in that ship, and the first thing I look for when I go on is shipmates. They ain't there. And of course, I was just a little guy, and to be in charge of the radios, there was other duties I had to do, such as assign work to seamen and whoever. But some of these big fellas could whip me 4 or 5 times to one. And I had one said, I gave him an order to do something. No, I'm not going to do it. I said, you got to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I said, if you don't, I have to put you on report. This is to the captain. He said, wait till I get out of church. He said, I'm going to kill you.
I got a letter from Jean with a small wedding picture. Well, I'm here just now, and before that I was there, and before that I was someplace else. While I'm here, I'm doing this, and while I was there, I was doing that. Everything is still all right, and that's about all I can say for myself without the censor having a word. You probably already know the rest if you still get to hear the news on the radio. Yep, I suppose Nick is really busy by this time, learning all the finer points of life. Being in is the only way of knowing the life of the Navy. I wonder by this time if he thinks maybe he should have taken the Army instead. They say the grass always looks greener on the other side of that fence. I've started to keep on the watch for Marion, maybe a possible chance of bumping into him. Dale.
He was out on working detail, worked 18 hours on charge of all these guys, because he didn't get in his bunk. Well, he hadn't been in bunk, well, I guess he ate and got in his bunk. He wasn't in bed 2 hours, and they turned the lights on and come down through there with their bar. Come on, guys, time to get up and get with it. He looked up at the guy and says, I ain't going, leave me alone, get out of here. Well, that got him in trouble. And when I started to get into him as to why he mouthed off like that, he said, I already had 18 hours in. Nobody checked the log over there on the desk. I hadn't been in bed 2 hours. And not only that, the thing of it was, he said, what did I get after 18 hours? I got a bowl of beans. He said, now, if you're going to have a man fight, you got to feed him. And a bowl of beans don't get it. And as soon as I get out of the brig or get done with whatever I'm getting charged with here, I'm getting a hold of Admiral Halsey, because I was still on too many flight decks, and had that man say, if you want a man to fight, you got to feed him. And you guys didn't feed me. So he said, I get a hold of him. We're going to get to the bottom of this one way or t'other. And he said, that was the end of that. And he said, I got something to eat.
Dear Dad, Mom, and all, here it is, nearly the end of another month, and the war still isn't over. I guess they must have it about wound up over in Europe. Maybe it will be over there by the time you get this. I hope so, anyway. Then everything will be turned loose on the Japs. I haven't seen Dale yet, but have been keeping a sharp eye for him. It is hard to say just when we might meet. I'm glad he is back on a ship again. Maybe it will help me to find him. I wrote him a letter the other day and told him to keep an eye open for the 491. Some of the CVEs don't have numbers on them, but I'll call them on the light and ask them which one they are. It would be easier for him to find me than I finding him. The numbers on my ship are large. I do hope we get to see each other. So Nick is in the Navy. I do believe he will like it there much better than he would have in the Army. We had dehydrated eggs for Easter, so I didn't eat any. I just can't stand those kind of eggs. I'll wait until I get home and then eat eggs. Marion.
Hi, Mom, Dad, and you kids, too. Did Sam get his letter? Did he understand it? You know, us farmers have got to stick together. I'll bet he's still wondering where that South 40 is. Bob, you tell him. It's the southwest section of the northeast quarter that lies due west of the last square of the northwest section. In other words, it's just north of the road. Now don't be silly and ask me what road. How should I know? Well, things are about the same over here. Flying, playing ball, reading mail when it comes in, and going to chow 3 times a day. I think that just about takes care of it.
In port, Guam. Just a line this evening. I don't have much time, but I just have to tell you how close I came to seeing Dale. I came into port today, and while I was getting the mail, I asked if there had been anyone coming in calling for mail for Dale's ship. Come to find out, it sailed from here just 2 days ago. I'm in hopes it has only gone on a test run and will be back in a day or so. I'm afraid that would be asking for too much. I'll probably stay about this far behind him all the way along now. Have you heard from him lately? Just thought I'd let you in on the disappointment. Better days ahead, they say. Always, Marion. Dear Dad, Mom, and all. Well, today has been a very successful day for me. I suppose you're wondering just how I mean that. It is a long story. I had thought Dale had left, but I was wrong. I had written to you last evening and told you I missed him by 2 days. I later found that the Natoma Bay did not leave Guam, but only changed its anchor position. Then I got in a small boat and went over. Yes, I found him! He was in the chow hall, and I'll tell you, I've never seen anyone quite so surprised. He was so surprised, he told me to eat chow, and he went up topside for some fresh air. When he finally got it through his head that I was there, we settled down into some deep conversation. I was with him for about 3 hours. He showed me his ship and told me where he had been and all. Then I asked him if he could get off the next day to go ashore. So as it is now, I'll pick him up tomorrow afternoon at 1300, 1 o'clock. We'll have all afternoon to spend together. I don't know how much longer he will be here, and I don't know about myself either. He is looking good, and said he likes it much better on the ship than he did in the start. He seems to have lots of friends and is making out just fine. I guess it is getting so a person has to go around the world to see his brother. That was the first time I had seen him since the morning he came home after the Wasp was sunk. Wonder where I'll be when I see Melvin the next time.
At anchor. Dear Mom, Dad, and all. Just a few lines this morning to let you know how things stand. Yesterday afternoon I saw Marion and talked to him for about 2 hours. I'm going to see him again this afternoon for about 4 hours. He looks good and everything seems to be going okay with him. Can't think of much else for now, so until later, Dale.
Gene is at Treasure Island now, on his way out. He said he thought they would go to Guam and pick up a ship. I tried not to cry when we said goodbye, but being my only brother, it was too much. Gee, but I'll miss him. I hope everything is okay, Dale. I do hope your chin is way up by now. You are doing a really swell job over there. I hope it won't be too long until it's all over and you will all be coming home. Your friend, Betty Jane. P.S. I just finished reading Baby Flat Top, a very witty description of life aboard a small carrier.
Things have been going fine with me here of part. Haven't been too busy, but still have lots of work to do. I saw Dale again the night before last. I called him on the blinker and asked him if it would be okay for me to come over, and he answered to come over if I could. I got a small boat, Higgins Special, and went over. He was feeling good and said he had lots of work to do the next day. Then this morning, I stood on the bridge of my ship and watched his ship pull out. He said they were going back up to Okinawa. They headed in that direction. I don't know when I'll see him again, but maybe soon. I'll probably see him up there. He said he didn't want to trade duty with me. Wonder why? Maybe he likes his kind of Navy better. I don't. Yes, I thought about it being Daddy's birthday when the President died. That was almost the first thing that came to my mind.
Case wire.
I hooked President Truman's speech up so all the men on the ship could hear it. I put it on the loudspeakers. They all listened very closely, wondering what he had to say.
And they talked about Harry Truman was vice president, and he was going to be our next president. Nobody knew anything about Harry
I
Truman.
didn't know him at all.
Only our baker, Joe Clark, was from Independence, Missouri.
He knew him.
He knew. Always said he's a good man.
He run a haberdashery, didn't he?
Yeah.
Before he went into politics.
Yeah. He's a good man, and he turned out to be one of the most honest presidents we ever had.
Well, he was the president that they set up a pension for.
Yeah.
Before that, the presidents didn't have a pension.
No.
But he was poor. He didn't have no money. He was going to starve to death. He'd been president of the United States. We're going to run out. We're going to be in a poorhouse.
Yeah.
So they set up a pension for him. But look how it is today.
Dear Mom and Dad and kids, I'm waiting on Sammy to get in, so I thought I'd write a line or two. The radio sounds like tonight it's going to bring us the real good news about the war with Germany being over. I'm going to keep the radio on all the time to be sure and not miss any of the excitement, if there is to be any. I hear Sam is thinking about raising a steer this summer. That will be something new there on our farm, huh? What's Max going to raise? Cane? If this news does come through tonight, it may make a difference when Sammy's furlough will be. Love, Jean.
VE Day, Victory in Europe, was celebrated on May 8th of 1945. By now, the Adams family is scattered all over. Now, here's Ohio. Nick is over here in New York at the Naval Training Center, and Jean and Sammy are down in Arkansas where he is at basic training. And Dale and Marion had just met clear over here on the island of Guam, located in the Northern Mariana Islands. Meanwhile, Melvin is flying supplies into China from Assam, India.
Do you want me to have this bucket?
Now that I'm back in the place where it rains lots and have to stay in, maybe I should catch up on my letter writing. Had a letter from Dale and Russ Furness. Thurm, I guess, is in the hospital. Kinda want to go up in the hills one of these days and do some hunting. From what I hear, there is most anything under the sun to shoot at here in India. Well, it's now up to the Chinks to decide whether or not the Japs get our air bases in China. We did our part. I'm kind of glad that kind of flying is over with. When do the kids get out of school? Are they all going to pass this year? Can't think of much to write about.
The India-China airlift began in April of 1942, and final operations were flown in November of 1945. The Hump airlift delivered approximately 650,000 tons of material to China during its 42-month history, with nearly 60% of that total delivered in 1945. At least 468 American aircraft were lost, with 1,314 air crewmen and passengers killed. In addition, 81 more aircraft were never accounted for, with their 345 personnel listed as missing. For its efforts and sacrifices, the India-China wing of the ATC was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the first such award made to a non-combat organization.
How is everyone at home? All feeling well, I hope. And what about the farm work? Corn all planted and up, I suppose. The kids will be out of school by the time you receive this, I'm sure. I'm beginning to get used to the hot weather. It rains quite often down here. The rain comes all at once, and as a result, we always nearly get caught in it. I haven't seen nor heard from Dale since he left here. I was just good and lucky to see him when I did. He told me he expects to be back in the States by the middle of July. Said his ship was due for some working on. We haven't gotten any mail for nearly 2 weeks, but I am looking forward to getting some tomorrow. It seems that we move around a little too much for the mail to catch up. I have a nice little radio set up here in my post office. I had quite a time stringing an antenna, but finally have it all set up. There are a couple of stations out here that we can pick up on the broadcast band. Haven't heard from Nick since he has been in the Navy. Wonder how he is liking it now. I have heard he didn't like it very well. I'm thinking he would like it much less out here. Be good and be careful to not overwork. Don't worry about me. I'll manage somehow. Bye now, Marion. Dear Bobby, say, I guess you're one fellow who knows how to get a letter from me. Was surprised to hear from you. Now I'll bet you're out of school. You said you only had 3 more weeks and that you were going to work very hard. What I want to know is, did you begin to work hard soon enough? Did you pass? What about the rest of the boys and Vivian?
It's a snipe.
Well,
You'll have to write again and tell me about it. Have you ever went snipe hunting yet? I'll have to show you how to do it. Tell Dale to show you how when he comes home this summer. Well, as you would say, that's all for now, so I'll close. Be a good boy and get the milking done before the milkman comes, and don't fight. As before, Marion.
You would be a good one to take snipe hunting. We'd give you a burlap sack, and you go down along the river.
You can't go out until it's dark, really
It has
dark.
to be dark.
Moonlight night's no good.
No,
It's gotta be dark.
You go down along the river in the bushes, and you put this sack out and you hold the sack so it's open. And we would go up in the field and
They look for certain trees that were so far apart, certain
Yeah.
kind of tree. And they put the sack in between there with the opening. You'd center and hold
the
that.
snipes
seed.
would run in
And
there.
we'd circle clear around and make noise to chase the snipes down there to run into the sack, and you close it. That's the idea, you stay there.
There was,
That's
no
snipe
such,
hunting.
there was no such thing as a snipe.
They'd get the guy down who didn't know nothing about it. He'd be holding the sack and they'd just go home.
Yeah. Let him sit there with his bag.
Just let him there. And he'd wait, and he'd wait, and he'd wait.
As we grew, we got more chores. You know, when the youngest one maybe get in the coal for the stove, and the older ones would do the milking, milk the cows, and then as you got older, well, you moved up into milking cows too. But I was the youngest, and of course all hand milking then. Something you had to develop the grip on your hands, you know. You get older, you could start to grip the tip, but when you was young, you couldn't squeeze hard enough on some cows. And we'd have to put kickers on some of them, which was, they'd tie their ankles so they couldn't kick you. Especially young heifers was the ones that you had to be careful of, because they'd kick your bucket over after you had it about done, then you lost everything. So we just had to do more, pick up the slack, we might say, and milk 2 or 3 more cows than we normally milk, each one of us. And then by the time the war was over, we were modernizing to the milker. So it was, that was a relief. We would fight over going to milk the cows in, because we didn't have to sit there and squeeze the ditch for the process of getting the milk.
Dear Dale, just a few minutes ago, a sailor who graduated with Jean was here and mentioned having seen your ship and talked with some sailors from it at Guam. They told him they just had a 20-day leave. You haven't been in the States lately, have you? He also mentioned a few other things which you probably couldn't write about, and I'm rather worried. It has been quite a while since I have heard from you. He's on a baby flat top too, but dope that I am, I can't remember the name. I haven't heard from Bob for almost a month, except for one letter he wrote about the 8th of May on board a ship. Where he was going, I don't know. Probably the Philippines. Maybe you have heard from him. I hope everything is okay, Dale. Keep that chin up. They get darn rough dragging on the ground. I know. Your friend, Betty Jane.
Well, it looks as though the U.S. is at war with just one country now. If the British just have some sense enough to keep their mouths shut and keep out of trouble with Russia, maybe we'll have peace after a while. With bad tires on the Plymouth, don't let my Chevy sit there idle. The tires on it will only rot away sitting there. Everything you need to get licensed for it is in the dash panel. I have no idea just now as to when I'll be getting home again. I guess this is about all for tonight. I must turn in. Hoping this finds everyone still okay back that way. Everything's still all right with me.
There isn't much to tell, but maybe you'll believe I'm still up and on the go if I write. Remember that writing folder you gave me about 3 years ago for Christmas? I still have it and use it every day. Sure has served the purpose for a long time. And the way you sewed my initials on my shirts and overalls, I still have all of them too. That did the trick. Keeps fellows from stealing them from the wash line. I've been on the lookout for Dale again. He should be somewhere near me. Or should I say, I should be somewhere near him. We got some mail today, and this is the one place you'd least expect mail. Sort of nice. Everyone's surprised to get mail here. Pacific. Big place. Don't forget. I haven't heard from Melvin for some time either. I guess our mail has to make a round-the-world flight before we can get it. Seems so silly for him to be so very close and yet still so far away. Maybe he'll fly over my ship some of these days. One never knows. I hear Nick is getting along better. Maybe this war will be over before he has to see any of this stuff. I heard from Russ Furness, and he was wondering what happened to Therm's ship. I haven't seen it. Glad to hear the farming is coming along so well. Bet Sam is a big help. What about the rest of the boys? Just get in the way is the way that Sam would say it. Ha! Well, I'm going to go on watch, so I'll have to close for this time. I've been standing watches for nearly a week now. Just a little busier.
When we come to shocking wheat, we help set wheat shocks up. It took a while to learn how to do that because it wasn't very big. But then when the thresher come, the only job that I ever had, well, there were the only two jobs. One was carrying a water jug around to the guys that was loading it on the wagons or unloading. They'd get thirsty and they needed a drink of water. Well, you had a glass jug and you had a corn cob in it. The corn cob was wrapped with wax paper. And that's what you stopped it up with, see? And you'd carry that around to everybody that come in, it needed a drink. And if everybody in there had a drink, then you'd go out in the field. If the field was close to the buildings, now if it was across the road, you had to wait till they come in because you wasn't big enough to go across the road. So they'd come in and you'd go around to each one of them and find out if they needed a drink of water. A lot of them did, some of them didn't. And another thing we'd done at that time was you'd sit on the tractor that was driving the thresher because Dad would be up guiding the blower, building the stack with the straw that was coming out. And if something went wrong, it'd take him too long to get down off it, run across the tractor and shut it down. So you'd sit on the tractor, hour after hour, when they was thrashing, and if something went wrong, the idea was to push the clutch in so that the thing would stop. And that's all you'd have to do, the tractor run, then slow the throttle down so that it wouldn't run so fast. And that was, but you'd sit there a lot of days, day after day, nothing would go wrong, so you just sit there. And you'd sit on the seat, you had to sit on the seat because you couldn't get up on it fast enough and Dad wanted to shut it down. So we'd take turns, but Verl and I mostly. Sam, he was a gopher. When Dad needed something, Sam was always out close where Dad was at, so if he had to go get a hammer or a fork or whatever he needed to fix something. Or Dad, he'd tell Sam to go get it, and he'd tell him where it was at, and Sam would run and get it. So Sam was the guy that run after stuff a lot for Dad.
As you remember, Dale's ship was conducting patrols during the Okinawa invasion. Marion's LSD started transporting explosives and supplies to Okinawa in support of the invasion. So he and Dale were fighting in the same battle, yet unable to catch a glimpse of each other's ship. As for Melvin, I'm sorry to report that he was involved in a takeoff accident. His ferry flight crashed 1/2 mile off the end of the runway.
Dear Dale, I spent last Friday up at Covington and had a swell visit with Uncle Russ and Aunt Laura Furness.
It is so good to
Firm
see
and
you.
his wife had already left.
It has
I was a
been.
little
How have you guys
disappointed,
been?
as it has been an awfully long time since I have seen him. Laura said it had been 4 years since they had seen him, and she just went all to pieces.
It's been so long.
They seemed to like his wife very much. You surely are tops with them. Laura has a picture of you hanging in the living room. I can't even begin to describe how beautiful the country is up there, especially this time of year. But you probably remember a lot. Bob thinks he has 55, maybe 60 points. But regardless, they were frozen as of May 12th. So it's a no-go anyhow. He might get as far as Guam on them. Big joke. That isn't even funny. Did he tell you he had turned down a 45-day leave? He's going to sweat out rotation because it would have been terrible to have to go back. If he waits for rotation, he will be assigned to the States for a while. He was so bitter in one of his letters, it didn't even sound like him. He said he may be home for Christmas. I'm afraid to even let my hopes get up again. Bob and I have a million plans in mind, but whether they can be carried out remains to be seen. I wouldn't worry about being old if I were you. It's 25, in case you're interested in your age. As long as you stay in those bell-bottom trousers, you'll look 15. So there you are. I have an ironing job staring me in the face, so I must knock it off, as Jean says. Betty Jane.
The Advanced Service Rating, or ASR score, was used to determine those who were sent home first. There were multiple factors considered when scoring: number of months in the service, number of months overseas, campaigns involved in, rank, medals received, and number of dependent children under 18. After VE Day, the score needed was 85. Then, when Japan surrendered, it was dropped to 75 and was basically used to stage troops on their voyage home. Bob Chrisman spent time at Guadalcanal, New Caledonia, Fiji, and the Philippines. After the war, he returned to the phone company and accumulated 42 years upon retirement. He and Betty Jane enjoyed traveling about and eventually settling in Tucson, Arizona. They remained lifelong friends with Dale.
They come out with a point system. You had to have so many points to be eligible for discharge. And my captain, his quarters was just below the ladder to the radio shack, and I printed a newspaper, and they put out the number of points depending on how many months was overseas, whether he was married and all that sort of thing. And our captain, naturally, he wanted to go home, but he read this, and he come up the ladder to the radio shack and give me a royal chewing because I was demoralizing the crew. And I just had WCPO Cincinnati on the radio, and I got the earphones off of the voice tube and handed it to him, and he stood a little and listened to that. And he knew what I put in the paper was what I heard. And so he just gave me back the phone and went back down his radio shack, or his cabin. Never did apologize.
2030, my time. 0630, your time. We got lots of mail upon arriving in port this time. It was welcome, too. Seems none of us can ever get too much mail. I won't know how to act once this war is over, and I won't have to write anymore. I received your birthday card. Better late than never, they say. I got quite a few cards this time. This birthday was spent nearly the same way as my 21st, remember? Truly, I don't believe this war with the Japs will last much longer. They are beginning to run low on lots of things. The sooner the better. Dad can get started on his new house as soon as they are whipped. I know he is anxious to get started. About one more big push will put them in their places. Just one person's opinion. The wheat will probably be all cut, and you will be thinking about cutting corn by the time you get this. Maybe you're planning on picking it all this year.
And then come along the combine, so we didn't have to shock wheat, and it just kind of progressed pretty fast after it started, you know. After the war, I think it really started to change the farming style.
I haven't heard any more from Dale or Melvin. Dale told me he worked on a mail boat, an LST, before he found his ship. I wonder just how Melvin is. He must not be bad off, or you would have heard long before this time. Take my word for it when I say the government works fast on sending out telegrams. No doubt they are both busy. You asked if I heard President Truman's speech closing the conference in San Francisco. Yes, and I nearly know it by heart. It was put on shortwave about every half hour. I heard it time and time again. Did I hear it? Yes! But I was just wondering what Mr. FDR would have said in place of it. Had you thought about that? I guess good men can't live forever. I still can't lead myself to believe he is dead, although I know he is. Let me know what LST Bud Wackler is on when you find out. I'll probably see him, as sometime or another we always run into one or all of the LSTs. I'm sending a few stamps. I know you can always use them. I have lots of them, and I know how much trouble it is for you to get them. Okay? Bye now. Marion.
War Department, U.S. Army Air Forces. Report of aircraft accident. Crew of 5 and 2 passengers boarded plane, and after usual pre-flight operation, gas tanks were topped. This was the first night takeoff performed by this crew as an operating unit. Ship made normal takeoff run and became airborne as it passed over a hump in runway. Position of crew was pilot in pilot seat, co-pilot in co-pilot seat, passenger pilot in radio operator's seat, engineer standing in doorway, navigator in navigator's seat, passenger engineer sitting on forward left side of main cabin, and radio operator Adams sitting on rear left side of main cabin.
I think we're gonna go down!
The pilot was applying forward control pressure to obtain single engine flying speed. With no further stick correction, the ship evidently settled downward. Co-pilot, recognizing the danger, pulled back on the control column. Correction could not be made and ship crashed. The plane hit and bounced a couple times before skidding along the ground to a stop.
During her weekly shopping, Bessie was asked by the grocer if she was worried with her boys being overseas at war and not knowing what was happening. Vivian overheard her mother's answer. No, they're in good hands.
Fort Riley, Kansas. Well, I'm back in camp. I imagine Jean had a large washing this week, back at home. I would rather have a large washing than just my own. I know I'd be happier if I were back for good. I'll be taking another trip, as we are only staying here for 5 days. Heading for the west coast, I hear. The news is beginning to look better every day, but I don't think we're ready to land on Japan proper yet. I'll close, leaving Jean in your care till I return, and let's hope that's soon. Love, Sammy.
Dear Vivian, well now, how have you been? And don't you go to checking over my English too much, for I'm not too good at it anymore. And as for my typing, there's just nothing like it. I make very few errors, but the typewriter makes lots of them. I can't seem to get it fixed. Played the ship's officers another softball game while in Saipan. Ship's control won by a score of 14-6. I pitched this game. For spectators, we had an unknown number of Japs that were hidden in caves near where we played. These ball games are used as a means of recreation, There is no other way to break the monotony of duties of the ship. Every time there was no reason to be ready for any sort of action, we were given time on the beach called beer parties. Not much beer, but the thought was there.
You listening, Bus? Are you surprised to get a letter from me? Well, don't be.
Hi, Max. Are you surprised to get a letter from me? Well, don't be, for I do write letters now and then. Did Verlin and Bobby get one today, too?
Just lucky.
They were just lucky.
They won't get one
When do you think the war will be over?
Get...
I hope it will end pretty soon so I can come home to help cut corn. You could use some help, couldn't you?
Today? Well, they're just lucky. But they won't get one tomorrow. Bet they won't get
We
one
have a
either.
Coca-Cola machine on the ship, so we have one every day. Of course, you don't like it, so I'll drink your share. Maybe I should close and write Sam a letter. He wouldn't like it if I didn't. Be good, and don't work too hard. Bye now. Good morning, Sam. Maybe you should tell me about yourself. What have you been up to? So what you should do is sit down and tell me all about it in a letter. I know you don't write very many letters, but next year when you go to school, you will know how to. I didn't know how to write letters until I came into the Navy. Did Bobby tell you about my going fishing? Anyway, the fish I caught were bigger than any of them you have caught, so there. Your brother, Marion.
You know, lay around the yard and wrestle and things like that. You know, once in a while you go in there and have Jack Armstrong or some program on, you'd listen to that. You know, it'd be a half-hour show or a 15-minute show. But then most of it was outside activities, things you did outside. Sack tag, you know, it was as far as having fun. Then he had the dog always entertaining.
By this time, I suppose the threshing machines are making a lot of noise and dust. Haven't heard from Melvin or Marion since I last wrote. Guess they're still after Nip somewhere. I can tell you now that I was in the entire mess at Okinawa. During that campaign, Lowell Thomas, the news commentator, was aboard the Natoma Bay. Did you get tags for the Chevy all right? Everything is going extra well at this time. As ever, Dale.
Midway Detail, Newport, Rhode Island. Dear folks, I suppose this finds you right in the middle of threshing and combining. Here it's hard to realize that it's that time of the summer. There are no farms around us, and naturally you lose track of the seasons. Of course, I'm now looking forward to a visit from my wife. That will be quite a trip for her on her first train ride. She will have her fill, I'm afraid, by the time she gets back. The Midway will be commissioned soon, and you will probably read all about it in the papers. We will hang around Portsmouth about 15 days, then go out for the shakedown. If nothing happens, I should get home to hunt a few rabbits, so have a few cornered for me. Love, Nick.
The aircraft carrier Midway was named for the historic carrier battle fought off Midway Atoll in June of 1942. This carrier was designed to operate a large air group and for the first time withstand armor-piercing bombs. Unlike the Wasp or Natoma Bay, which had flight decks made of wood, she was constructed with the most extensive vertical protection features possible, including a 3.5-inch armored flight deck.
The first day of hunting all was usually the big day. We would get maybe 8 or 10 rabbits.
Afraid of you.
Yeah.
You was one of them, and Nick and Melvin and I don't think Dale was there, but Dad was. And they went through that and rabbits into the galore.
Yeah.
They'd make one round of that. They'd be all 5 or 6 rows between you. Make one round of that, and you'd get out to the end, and I'd be there with a 5-gallon bucket. You'd fill that bucket with rabbits, and then I'd carry it to the house, and Mom would start cleaning them.
Skin them.
Yeah, skin them, get them ready to fix them, cold pack them. Of course, we'd have rabbit gravy. They ain't better gravy than rabbit gravy.
That's for sure.
But they'd make 3 or 4 rounds in it. Every time they'd come back, I had another 5-gallon bucket of rabbits.
I really don't believe the war will last much longer over here. There is certainly a difference in the Jap air power. They still have some, but nothing like it had been. I'm sure you get more of that detailed information than I can begin to put through the censors. The newspapers can tell things that we don't dare to mention, Doesn't seem right to me. Dale can even mention less than I can. Maybe it is because he doesn't take the chances. I don't blame him, for it is very disappointing to have written a letter and then have it all cut up. What is the score on Melvin? I haven't heard from him for a long time, and Dale said he hadn't either. By the way, did all the kids get their letters? Bet they didn't know what to do, all of them getting letters on the same day. Write again soon, as I am always wondering what is going on at home. Marion.
You definitely look forward to mail. I did. I know. You didn't have communications other than the letter. You didn't phone. You didn't call. You know, it wasn't one of those kind of things. The letter was your communications with what happens back at the house. You know, and that's. I wasn't really good about writing regularly, but Mom was pretty regular with writing.
Every week.
Yeah,
every week you get a letter.
she would always write.
Sometimes you didn't get it each week, but then. It's because the mail was blocked up somewhere. We moved around a lot. Yeah. But it's true, when we were in the service, we continually wanted to know what was going on at home. Yeah.
And the guys that didn't get any mail, they were bitter.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get a letter, see?
Yeah.
I don't know, I know by road.
You really don't get over being homesick. I mean, you do, but you don't, you know.
You're still interested in what's going on back there.
Yeah, you need to know what's happened at the house.
A lot of that depends on activity, where you are and what you're doing.
And Mom's ability to write was just general stuff that went on at home.
Yeah.
The cows got out, or one cow had her calf. I mean, that kind of stuff. It wasn't a thing of the community done this or the community. It's just things that happened there on the farm. And that's what she wrote about. That's things that happened.
That's right. We answered it. We'd want to know whether the corn was all picked or the wheat was cut.
And that's mostly because that's what you always was concerned with.
That's
that's what
right.
you had to do.
But prior to going into service, that was it. Yeah. Dad went by with the tractor. He must be going to do something today. I mean, she didn't know what he was going to do, but he went by the house with the tractor, so she was going to do something. She didn't know what it was. She'd put that in the letter. So.
What do you want to know?
Tell us what happened right after the crash.
Well, right after the crash, I kicked the window out.
Statement of passenger pilot regarding aircraft accident. After the crash, I kicked the remainder of a window panel out and crawled through it. The pilot and co-pilot came after, and we pulled the unconscious engineer out, laying him over on the grass. Upon returning to the ship, I noticed the navigator jumping down from the ship through an opening left by the main cabin and cockpit cabin separating. The radio operator was still in the ship, and I went back to the cracked position of the ship when the crash truck arrived and officer in charge took over.
News of those wounded or missing in action, or worse, was taking its toll on the families back home. Blue stars were being replaced with gold much too often.
Dear Dale, how are you? We are fine. Sammy is on his way out of the States. Maybe he and Nick will not have to be gone so long if the Japs fold up in a few weeks. We finally got a letter from Melvin. By the sound of his letter, he has not been able to get back to the same place in India where he began. And I don't think he has been getting his mail because he didn't say anything about any news that were in the letters he should have gotten. He says he is still flying the big ones and keeping China's light burning. Says he feels fine even though he has been in almost 3 years now. Says they fly over some of the worst jungles in the world and that he works mostly at night. Says he wishes they would put him on a daytime schedule.
According to Trudy, Melvin was not in his usual station when this plane took off, due to the pilot's lack of interest with Melvin's knowledge of the runway. Maybe he had a feeling it was not going to turn out well.
No, we have not threshed yet. My, it would be nice if you could be here then. The corn is very tall, but some have been blown over by the high wind. I am afraid we will have a time of it when corn picking comes along. This is the first time I remember of the grass not getting brown during July and August. The lawnmowers are having a long working season this year. The rains make the weeds grow too. We were busy 3 days pulling and cutting weeds out of the potatoes. They look good, but some did not come up because of too much water. I guess this is all for this time, so write whenever you can, hoping you are well and that this war soon comes to an end. Love, Mom.
And then the last story that I know about Dad is when he was living with us several months before he died. And I don't even remember what brought up the whole conversation, but he was telling me that when he was in India, the runways were, they weren't nicely paved runways. Most of the runways were made of stone. And he said that they had gotten a new pilot. And it was the first time that this pilot was going to be flying the Hump. So he was trying to tell this pilot at the end of the runway, there's a dip. I don't know if it was a levee or if it was just the way the land went or what, but there was a dip at the end of the runway. And he was trying to tell this new pilot, you have to be sure that you have your nose up before you get to the end of the runway, because if you think that you've got more runway, you really don't have more runway. And the pilot's response to him was, you do what you do and leave the flying to me.
You're going to have to watch out.
Headquarters, Air Transport Command.
You do what you do, I'll fly the plane.
Through conductance of this investigation and interrogation of the personnel involved, this committee feels that there was a lack of aircrew cooperation and teamwork. The primary cause for the accident lies with the co-pilots turning off the landing lights, and pilot lost all visual reference with the ground. The responsibility for the accident rests also with the pilot.
I think we're going to go down!
He did not take all necessary measures to ensure proper execution of takeoff. The crew did not operate as a cooperative, confident unit.
So, just like a really bad movie, when they went to take off on their first mission, that pilot didn't get the nose of the aircraft up quickly enough, and they actually crashed on takeoff. Apparently there was a fire in the cockpit, and Dad was able to escape from the back of the plane and was running as fast as he apparently could go to get away from that plane, because of course it was full of fuel. And as he was running, he came upon some people that had come out of the barracks or the housing there, and one of the people grabbed him by the arm. Well, it happened to be the base chaplain, and the base chaplain says, "Oh, let's stop and pray for these poor soldiers in this plane." And my dad said something to the effect of, "To hell with praying, I'm going to get the hell out of here," and continued on. Well, apparently he was reprimanded for that statement and had to meet the base commander because of his statement to the chaplain. And looking back on it, it seems to me that reprimand enough would be to make him go on and carry out further missions, which he did.
It is recommended that in ATC operations where crews are frequently interchanged, that emphasis be placed on the necessity for all crew members to be thoroughly versed in flight procedures and be cognizant of each other's capabilities and responsibilities.
Signal Base Maintenance Company, Leyte, Philippines. Yes, you guessed it. I'm healthy, fat, and sassy. I'm getting a little heavier since I got my job as a baker. It's funny, as I never thought I'd make a baker. I had my heart set on being a mechanic or a diesel engineer, but they didn't need anyone for that job. I bake almost every day. I get up at 5 a.m. and bake biscuits for breakfast, hot rolls for dinner, and cookies for supper. I finish about 4 p.m. and then get my mail and read it. Probably by the time you get this letter, you will be picking corn. Sounds like work to me, but I will confess I sure wish I was there helping you. I think that a scoop shovel will still fit into my hands, blisters and all. The best thing to do is be patient. We had a little scare around the depot last night, Just a few natives trying to steal some equipment. There were 5 of them. 2 were shot last night, 1 this morning, and another one taken into custody. I'll be able to explain life over here a lot better when I get back. I just can't talk about it now. It does get rather bad around here with these raids, but that's only the smallest thing. Take good care of Jean for me. Hope to see you soon. Love, Sammy.
And then in the fall, after it got dry, after corn got dry, then they take this looked like a separator that thrash wheat on it for corn. They fed the corn in it, and it shucked the corn off and blew the fodder out of it.
While Sammy is away, Jean finds employment at the Waco Aircraft Company in Troy, Ohio, helping to build military gliders used for airborne operations.
Oh, nurse. U.S. Naval Hospital, San Diego, California. Howdy, Dale. Just received your letter today with the 10 spot in it. Thanks a lot. Seems to me you were in the same hospital. I was home on a 30-day leave and saw my folks. Your folks looked good. I hardly knew the kids. They've grown so much. Your mom said you and Marion were in Guam, then were sent to Okinawa. How about it? I was injured on April 6th at Okinawa and had my arm broken. A suicide plane hit the ship. The USS Comfort took me to Guam, and I flew from there to Pearl Harbor. Took a transport to Frisco and a train to Diego. I'm about ready for duty. It's been a long time since we've seen each other, and I hope it will be all over soon. Hurry up and finish this war, will you, bud? I'm back doing nothing, but I'll be out there soon. I hope not. You're correct. We didn't know how nice it was back on the farm. As ever, Smokey. Therm.
After the war, Thurm continued serving the public as a police officer in the Homicide Division. He lived in Los Angeles, California, until retirement when he moved to Texas for health reasons. The ship he served on received 15 battle stars, placing her among the highest decorated U.S. ships of World War II.
July and August 1945. In Los Alamos, New Mexico, the world's first atomic weapon is successfully tested. At Potsdam, just outside Berlin, Allied leaders meet to redraw the map of Europe and discuss the defeat of Japan. The Allies broadcast the Potsdam Declaration and their demands to Japan for an unconditional surrender. The war's heaviest air raid is launched against Japan, with 800 U.S. aircraft dropping 6,000 tons of incendiary bombs. Colonel Paul Tibbets drops an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima from his B-29 superfortress. Over 80,000 people die instantly, and another 80,000 are injured. Italy and the Soviet Union also declare war on Japan. A second atomic bomb is dropped on the shipbuilding center at Nagasaki. The Japanese broadcast a response accepting unconditional surrender, but insisting that their emperor must remain at the head of the nation. Japan's Emperor Hirohito issues a formal notice of ceasefire to all of his forces. Rationing of gasoline and fuel oil ends in America. As the Supreme Allied Commander of the region, General MacArthur accepts the formal surrender of the Japanese on board the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay.
A surprising thing to me was when the word came aboard that they had dropped that big bomb on Hiroshima. It came out on a newsletter that this bomb had been dropped and how powerful it was. Well, we were way out there, nowhere from land, and a lot of us had enough of the war. We thought that the people would have said, "Boy, it'll be over now," but they didn't. The men in the group that I was in, maybe 25 to 30 of them, said, "Yeah, just think what it has done to civilization." The other way, before the bomb, you knew where the enemy was. You faced him and shot him. Now somebody in a plane can drop this bomb on you. You don't even know your everlasting was coming. So the people that were fighting didn't really go for the big bomb at all. They were thinking what it would do to the future.
They all moved around to the Japanese side. Then they dropped the atomic bomb, and that was the end of that. But we really, the other young kids, we really didn't put too much to it, you know. And they didn't even tell you they were going to drop it till the day they dropped it. And at that time, it was just unbelievable that something like that could even happen. It could kill that many people. It was just unbelievable. You just couldn't believe it. But it ended the war. That was the biggest thing. It was over. No more.
And I wrote in the paper about the atomic bomb at Hiroshima. It carried the same explosive as 20,000 tons of TNT. And he said it's impossible for one bomb to blow up a whole city. And I said, well, here it is. And of course on WCPO, that's all he was talking about. And I gave him the earphones again. And he listened to that and turned and went back down to his cabin. Never apologized.
The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Presidential Unit Citation to the United States ship Natoma Bay and her attached air squadrons for service as set forth in the following citation. For extraordinary heroism in action against enemy Japanese forces in the air, ashore, and afloat, striking aggressively at her targets in the face of frequent and sustained hostile air attacks, the USS Natoma Bay caused extremely heavy losses to the enemy in warships, aircraft, merchant shipping, and shore installations destroyed or severely damaged. Although crashed by a Japanese kamikaze while participating in a heavy assault on Miyako-jima on June 7th, she sent out 55 sorties from her damaged flight deck. Her illustrious record of achievement, made possible by her own combat readiness and the courageous fighting spirit of her officers and men, reflects the highest credit upon the Natoma Bay and the United States Naval Service.
Dear Dale, how long will it last now? That's the big question these past couple of days. That atomic bomb is something that scares you just to hear or read about it. The Bible says this: world will end in a twinkling of an eye. It sounds like that when an atomic bomb strikes. They were telling on the radio that it is so fast that no one feels any pain. Now, if that don't scare the Japs into a surrender, will the Russians' declaration of war help any? The Japs are scared of the Russians. I heard one newsman say the Japs may fold up this week. Another says in 20 or 30 days. Well, anyway, let's hope it all happens very, very soon. Then you boys will all get home. In a letter that Gene got from Marion this week, he says he thinks you are on your way home. If that is so, it is fine. We are watching for you.
Newport, Rhode Island. Dear Mom, well, the war is over. Came a little quicker than we expected. It was sure good to be here with Nick when it happened. I wish you could have seen this town last night. These sailors were really happy. We were just on our way walking uptown to get our supper when a man walked up to us. He said, it just came over the wireless. The war is over. A few seconds later, horns began to blow and people started swarming into the streets. All were laughing, hollering, and whistling. Tomorrow afternoon, the Navy band with several divisions are supposed to march down through town with a big parade to follow. I'm going to see that. There isn't any chance of the fellows on the Midway getting any leaves, and regardless of the war being over, it's still scheduled to go to sea. Nick is so glad I came out. Well, it won't be so awful long now before some of the boys will be getting home. Melvin should be one of the first. I'll drop you another line before I head back that
Well,
way.
we need to go out and get some
Love,
stamps later,
Jeanette.
and then we got to write everyone up.
Jeanette and Nick took their family to all parts of the United States after the war. They traveled and moved about while he sold sewing machines.
Got a letter from Jeanette. She was enjoying her trip east. She is glad she was with Nick when they heard that the Japs were ready to accept our terms. She said all those sailors were really glad that the war was over and were celebrating and marching all over the place. And all the foghorns blew for quite a while. Every business place and post office was closed up and some real celebrating
I
done.
went to the fair today, and there was over 40,000 people there.
A lot of folks went visiting, and Daddy said there was a terrible crowd at the fair. You see, all the factories were shut down, so they went to the fair. Daddy said he heard in town there were 40,000 people there. Then they were turned away at the gate. I see in the little paper that Melvin has been awarded the Air Medal for 250 hours of flight from March 20th to June the 6th in the India-China theater of war. I guess they really keep those boys busy.
I've heard many stories about some of the pranks he pulled. Apparently he and his brothers were out in the woods one time, and there's a sitting close to a pasture somewhere, and there was a notoriously bad bull that resided in this field, and the bull had a chain around its neck to keep it from jumping fences. Dad and his brothers, a couple of them, were sitting on a log in the woods next to this field, and Dad had brought a piece of chain with him. And so when they were sitting there talking, and they didn't know about the chain, sitting there talking, kind of, looking over things and whatever boys do, he grabbed that chain beside the log and jiggled it, and they all jumped up because they thought that bull was right behind them. He had a good friend named Dick Schuff. Dick Schuff and Dad did a lot of hunting. So Dick Schuff wanted to come out and shoot squirrels out at the farm. Dad said, sure, come on out. Dad had gone out the day before and killed a squirrel, and in a tree had climbed up and nailed the squirrel to the tree. The poor dead squirrel stayed in the tree overnight, but the next day when Dad and Dick came out to hunt squirrels, Dad says, well, look in that tree over there. There's a squirrel up there. Yeah, I'll get him, Dick says. And so he shoots and shoots, and the squirrel does not move. He cannot imagine. And Dad says, something wrong with your gun. You must want to sight that thing in. I can shoot better than that. Finally, it became obvious to both the Dick Schuff that the squirrel had been dead before, so it was just a joke that he'd play. That kind of stuff is what Dad would do.
When I look back on the stories that ultimately I learned from Dad, I think that he probably did have some form of post-traumatic stress, considering some of the experiences he had while in the Army Air Corps and being on planes. And I think that he just wanted to leave those things behind, go on with his life as a farmer and a father, and not dwell on those issues. But he was a pretty strong guy, and he was a very disciplined guy. And I think those are probably some of the attributes he learned from the Army Air Corps. But
so I really, really wanted to learn how to fly and get up there. And I think just as Dad did in the beginning. We'd be sitting there working. There'd be a plane fly over. I'd look up. I'd be watching that plane go by. And Dad said, pay attention to what you're doing and don't be looking at the airplanes. He really didn't like to be associated with them, when he was, at least when I was young, and get involved in it. And so that kind of demonstrated the fact that he really didn't want to have much to do with airplanes after the war.
The Air Medal is awarded to any officer or enlisted member of the United States Armed Forces who, by definition, distinguishes himself in combat in support of operations by meritorious achievement while participating in an aerial flight. Oak leaf clusters were used to denote subsequent awards of the Air Medal. Lieutenant Colonel Clarence U. Pratt of the Air Corps stated on his recommendation that
it is felt that the flights represented by the hours shown above indicate extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight. Sergeant Adams displayed outstanding abilities as a radio operator over the hazardous India-China route under difficult and unpredictable weather conditions. He has always shown an eager willingness to fly at any time, and this high devotion to duty has reflected great credit upon himself and the Army Air Forces.
Melvin was subsequently awarded the Air Medal with a second oak leaf cluster on November 30th of 1945. After the war, he continued to enjoy hunting, but would not fly in an airplane again for the rest of his life.
When we were growing up, we always knew that Dad didn't want to fly. If we were going to be traveling somewhere, we always knew that if Dad was going, it was going to be a car trip. And when we would ask, why won't Dad fly? The standard answer was he had enough flying when he was in the Army. And Dad was in the Army Air Corps. He was in the Army from 1942 until he was discharged in 1946. So he would never fly. When I got married, I was going to go to the Philippines to study medicine. And so it came that we asked Dad, well, if I'm there for a long time, are you going to come over and visit? And he says, well, I'll come and visit, but it's going to take me a while to get there. And the question was, well, why will it take you so long to get there? And he says, because I'm going to have to come by boat. Well, why are you going to have to come by boat? Because I won't fly. I said, but it'll take you a month to get there by a boat. He says, then it'll take me a month to get there by a boat. So he would not come to fly at any point in time. It was always he would drive, but he would not fly.
I suppose a lot like a lot of veterans. And my dad was one of those that didn't talk much about the war at all until later on. One story I remember was that us boys were out helping him in the barn one day. And it was a Sunday. And I made some crack about working on Sunday. And he said to me, he says, you know, one of the hardest days I ever worked in my life was on Sunday, because we had a problem with our airplane when we were flying the Hump, and we had to manually pump fuel out of it so that we wouldn't crash. And he says I had to crawl and use a hand pump, pumping fuel out of the airplane so we could make it back to where we were going. And so that kind of solved the problem of working on Sunday. So.
Tezgin, India. Hello, everyone. Since this trip is just getting underway, I think I'll jot down a few lines. At the present moment, we're just passing over the Irrawaddy River in Burma. We're bound for Canton, China. Have one of our planes over there needs some magneto wiring or something. From there, we go on up to Shanghai for a load of 100 octane to bring back to one of the bases in central China. As you have probably already noticed, I've been assigned to a different base. It's down in the Bengal area near Calcutta. It's a C-54 base, and we have been hauling GIs out of China to ports of embarkation. Although we have been hauling a little bit of everything. The last load of stuff we took to China was 2,100 pairs of shoes. They were limey made and were going to the feet of China. If you ask me, I think China could do with a little education so she can make her own shoes. These C-54s are quite the ship. 4 engines, and they haul about 40 passengers and baggage. I believe the airlines back in the States call them the Skymaster. Been trying to get a trip into Tokyo, but haven't had any luck yet. It's like I said once before, the big shots say, yes, the ATC hauled the goods to China, now let them haul it out. So you see, it's hard saying when I'll head back that way. I looked some of the boats over in the harbor up at Shanghai last trip, but didn't see 491. I mailed Jeanette a package containing some junk I was tired of lugging around. It will probably go by boat, so it's hard saying when it will get there, if ever. That's about all for now. Melvin.
In the early 1990s, my husband and I decided that we would take Dad to the Air Force Museum. And at that point in time, my dad had never been to the Air Force Museum, even though he had been in the Army Air Corps. And they have a mock-up, a table mock-up of the Himalayan mountains. And part of Dad's duty when he was in the Air Corps was what they called flying the hump. And these airmen would have usually a pilot, a co-pilot, and a radio operator. And Dad was a radio operator. And they may fly several missions in the course of a day. And it was very treacherous duty because the weather could change minute by minute over the mountains. And there were many planes that were lost either because of weather conditions or simply hitting the mountains. So it was treacherous duty. At the Air Force Museum, he was really surprised, I think, to see the tabletop mock-up of the Himalayan mountains, because it had the mountains and that it had all of the base camps around on either side of the mountains where these guys would fly from and to and back again. And I think it was really a surprise to him that there was even that little bit of information about the guys who flew the hump at the Air Force Museum, because it was kind of like, oh my gosh, here's what I did. So I think it was really a surprise to him to even see that that model was there.
Once the airlift got underway, every item used by American forces in China was flown in. Never in the history of transportation had any community been supplied such a large proportion of its needs by air. The Hump ferrying operation was the largest and most extended strategic air bridge in aviation history until exceeded in 1949 by the Berlin airlift. After the Hump, those who had participated knew that they could fly anything, anywhere, anytime.
The other thing that happened when we were at the Air Force Museum is I was off looking at something else, some other display at the museum, and Dad called me over and he says, Trudy, come here, I want to show you something. And so he was standing under the belly of a large plane that they have actually on the inside of the museum. And he says, do you see this little hatch here on the bottom of this plane? And I said, yeah. He says, well, in the planes that I was flying in, when we were in the service, that hatch was closed with little locks like you would find on a kitchen cabinet door. And he says there were several of those latches, and that was the only thing that kept that door shut. And he says one night we were flying, and the plane just made this horrible shudder. And he says, I didn't know what happened to the plane. I didn't know if we had hit something, if we had lost an engine, what was happening, but I was convinced that the plane was going down, and I didn't have my parachute on. So I got a hold of my parachute, and I'm trying to get my parachute on, and I'm jumping up and down, trying to get my legs in the parachute, trying to get the straps up over my shoulders, and then I realize I'm jumping up and down on this hatch that is closed with locks that close the cabinets of the kitchen door. And he says, in one fell swoop, I jumped off of that door so that I wouldn't end up going through the door and out of the plane. So it ended up that apparently they had hit really bad turbulence or something, and they managed to save the plane. They didn't go down, but he thought for sure that they were going down.
San Diego, California. Dear Mom, Dad, and all. Well, it looks like it's about all over. I got into San Diego today, and as far as I know, I'll be home in time for the start of corn picking. I'm writing to Melvin's commanding officer tonight, too, to find out what the dope is. The return address on this will be phony. Don't use it. As ever, Dale.
Dad had character. One time we were working with a piece of equipment, and I think it might have been a slip scoop. I don't know why, but he'd borrowed it. And he told us to clean it up and get all the mud off of it. And he says, I said, we're done with it. Why don't we just turn it back in? He says, because whenever you borrow something, you want to turn it back in better shape than when you got it. Never forgot that. Dad was big on honesty. If you lied to Dad, that was the worst crime you could commit. And I keep that with me and my daughter. And hopefully I can pass that along to her too. And I'm sure it had a lot to do with his time in the military.
About 6 o'clock this evening, the news came on the radio that the Japs were ready to accept our terms. Now, if they really mean it, that will be fine, but I am afraid that they will still try to pull a fast one on our boys and have to land on Japan. I sincerely hope not, but you know how treacherous they can be. It took them Japs a long time to make arrangements to meet with our side to make terms. They are a die-hard lot. I am wondering if Marion is over close to Japan somewhere. It took 2 weeks for his last letter to get here by airmail.
We were in the Philippines and we were shore based at that time. I was on the staff of the commander of the 7th Fleet, and we were in Manila. I was at a movie, of all things. They came into the movie and announced that the Japanese had surrendered. We knew that there was an awful lot involved at that particular time, and we knew that what the situation was. So the fact that the war ended was no big surprise to us, because by that time I was the chief petty officer, and I was in charge of problem traffic. In other words, the garbled traffic. We had to find where it was supposed to go and to get it delivered. I had an opportunity to contact the airplane that was bringing the Japanese people to Manila to sign the agreement, but I got to use the old-fashioned Morse code and contact them. And I thought that was kind of a privilege in a way. But I think the thing that really surprised me more than anything, that there was a celebration in Manila, that they were shooting guns all over the place, and there wasn't one casualty. At that time, I was attached to the 1st Marine Division's Combat Communications, and we were supposed to land on the coast of China and then eventually go down and invade Japan. And that was a big relief, because I knew I wouldn't have to do that. I just all of a sudden was a civilian without a job.
Tokyo Bay, Japan. I'll be sending odds and ends home from time to time and would sort of like to keep them for future reference. So if you will lay them back until I get home, I'll be thanking you a lot. Picked up a Jap rifle while in Okinawa. Of course, I have no way of proving it. Bet Dale is ready for hunting season. Are you going to be able to get shells this year? My Jap rifle shoots 25-30s. I suppose Dale will begin painting the buildings before long. I won't know the place when I get home. Thanks for the 2 pictures you sent me. Was that a picture of Bobby, Verlin, or Sam? Maybe you should name the rest of them. I might not know who is who. Vivian has surely grown up. That hairdo. Where in this wide world did she get it? This LST is supposed to be given to the Merchant Marines. When we weren't supposed to be writing about the weather, it would always come to my mind to mention it. And now that we have no restrictions at all, I can hardly think of anything to write. Your son and brother, Marion.
Now in Japan, when the war was over, I went on Liberty into Tokyo, and all you could see was the places where they had a safe sitting on them. And it had them 2nd story high, be a safe up there. Everything else was burnt out. There was nothing left. But the Japanese there, when you walked toward 3 or 4 of them coming towards you, when they got so close, they'd get off in the curb, in the sidewalk, and turn their backs to you. I couldn't understand that. We got back to the ship, why? We tried to find out, and it was because they didn't want us, Americans, looking them in their face. They'd turn their back. Everybody was being discharged from the point system, and what we were getting was radio strikers, no experience at all. And this captain was in charge of decommissioning LSTs in Tokyo Bay. And he came to me before I left the ship, and I had enough points. He came to me and wanted to know if I would go with him for 6 months. I was already first-class radioman. He said, I'll make you chief, and I'll let you out in 6 months. And I didn't know what to do. We had no chaplain aboard. We had a doctor. So I went to the doctor and asked him, what should I do? He said, well, did you want to go home? I said, yeah, I got a farm rented. Well, he said, you go and tell the captain that you're going to go home. He said, let him worry about his own problems. So that I did, and this four-striper took his hand out and shook hands and said, that's all right. Thank you.
Marion was a member of the original crew picking up his LST at the shipbuilder in Evansville, Indiana. And now he is still part of the crew, decommissioning and preparing it to be turned over to the Japanese. It will be used in a humanitarian effort to take starving Japanese troops who were stranded on islands around Japan back to the mainland. Marion proudly calls himself a plank owner of the old Double Trouble. And at the time of production, his goal is to live long enough to be the last known living World War II veteran.
I got out of the Navy in 1946 on February 2nd, which is Groundhog's Day. And then, of course, you think about your shipmates. You lived with them, right with them for 3 years, and that was the hard thing. That's my problem now when I go down on the LST. I go up the gangplank and I look around for shipmates. There ain't none there. The biggest benefit to the Americans and the American people was Japan attacking Pearl Harbor. These people in this country got to hate the Japanese, and they knew that the Japanese were going to take our country. We would never have gotten into the war as we did had that not happened.
Well, I think as far as affecting your life when you get out, while you're in there, you get to see a lot of what the other people live like.
Yeah.
And I've never seen any place, I want to trade places with them for what we have here. No, it didn't make us where you's at.
Yeah.
I mean, oh sure, there's good scenery and all that, but the living conditions is nothing like it is here. And a lot of people don't realize that. And don't make it where you go in the world, it's never better than it is here, never. As bad as this might get, it's still worse there. Never, any place you go, I don't care where it is.
Great Lakes, Illinois. Just a note before I take a nap. I got here last Friday night. Everything is still going extra well. Expect you got my letter of August 20th from San Diego, so you know I'm not getting any mail. In fact, what is in the mail for me is probably coming back there. I saw Therm Furness several times in San Diego, and the day I left from Los Angeles, I was out to his house with him for about 7 hours. Hoping the other boys are getting back this way. As ever, Dale. P.S. Has the birds got all the channel cats caught?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's all quiet. They didn't talk much, didn't say much. Didn't even talk much to each other. A little bit, no big long conversations of any kind. Yeah, they was very, very quiet about what was going on or what they'd done or seen or anything like that. And Dale was probably the worst at that. He wouldn't talk about any of it. He didn't care to say anything about any of it. It was years and years after that before he ever talked about what happened in the service.
I don't believe he just never said anything about his health at all that I ever remember, and you could tell he had been through things because he was different. He was different than he was when he left. But
Never said nothing. He didn't say a word about it. He never talked to me about it till, oh my, it was probably 2 or 3 years before he died. I happened to be up there looking for a part for a truck, and I stopped in there, and he was down in his shop, and he got talking. And then he started telling me all about it. That's the first time I ever heard him say anything about it.
there wasn't much fun in them like they used to be. They used to play with the neighbors, you know, games. I guess they just grew up a lot, and it wasn't the same. That changed them a lot.
Guess you are wondering if I have celebrated the surrender of the Japs. Well, you know when I'm going to celebrate? When you boys all get home. I am glad they have decided to quit, but I would be more satisfied to do my celebrating then. Covington is beginning to look as if no one had ever left. A lot of boys are home by now. Well, it is about mail time, and I want this to get started on its way to you. So hoping this finds you well, even better than that, I wouldn't care if it followed you home. Hoping to see you soon. Love, Mom.
Mom never let on, but we knew she was worried. She wrote all of them a letter regularly.
She'd send me out the mailbox with them, yeah. We was back a lane, and she'd say, here, you gotta get this out for the mailman. And of course, I was always ready to go out and put the flag up for the mailman to get her letters. And of course, she was always anxious to get some mail from them. It sometimes was a long time between times when she'd get a letter, but she'd keep writing, like as if she was getting mail. She was very dedicated to writing letters.
She was worried. She was always worried. And now Marion had a way of telling Mom where he was all the time. And Mom never told us this all the while. She knew where Marion was all the time, because Marion was always putting in the longitude and latitude in his letters whenever he'd write.
And soon after he got home, that's when Dale started building a new house.
As soon as he returned home, Dale spearheaded the construction of a 2-story home for his folks. It was complete with 10 rooms, indoor plumbing, and a full basement. Much larger and nicer than the 5-room house they had been living in.
When we was living in the log house, the old log house, and then Dale got home from the service, and they went to Tennessee and got some lumber and stacked it outside, bricked it all up to start a new house.
But before we started building the house, we had a barn there. There was a barn right there, and me and Dad, we jacked that barn all up and put it on building rollers and planked that thing a little bit at a time with one of the big tractors, pulled it away from where that house is sitting now, turned it, and put it over to the side.
They dug the basement with a scoop on the back of a Ford tractor, and it was a hand scoop. You had to use handlebars on it, and the tractor pulled it, and they went up one corner and kept piling the dirt up till they got it. And then the cement work was, they had a big yard mixer, and I remember them shoveling in that, and that's how they poured the walls for the basement. Dale had, of course, form up all those walls, and
of course Dale wasn't the only one doing it. We were doing it. We dug the basement in there with a slip scoop. Then we poured the cement, and that was a 24-hour deal, because we had gravel set all the way around the walls, had it all formed up to pour the cement in the basement, and we would have to shovel, and all the kids was busy. All of us was. You had to shovel gravel off the ground onto a wagon, and the cement mixture set on a wagon. So we had to shovel it on the wagon, and then somebody on the wagon would shovel it into the mixer. And we had 2 wagons, one following the other one. And you had to keep moving the wagon. When you got the mixer full, and they were only just a small mixers, you dump it right into the form, right off of the wagon, right, dump it right in. You didn't haul it. Then you had to keep moving the wagon around the foundation, around the wall. Then, at that time, there was a elevator in Covington, right west of 36, and they tore it down, and it had big logs in it. No, they were 40-footers. So we got those logs and brought them home on a wagon and painted them with creosote and covered them up. And those were the logs we used in the basement to carry the house.
But it was much nicer. We had inside plumbing and we had a lot of conveniences that we never knew before. He kind of felt that that was something that he could do for Mom and Dad, for the house that we lived in was so cold, and pleased with, being able to stay warm and have room of our own. We each had a room, and there was plenty of closet spaces, and there were just places to keep your clothes without being in the same room with 2 or 3 others. We never knowed any different than that. We all was in one room. And
he continued as a public servant in civilian life, being a volunteer firefighter for 20 years and serving as chief for 12.
Never discussed what we did in the service or what we were going to do when we got out of the service or anything. I had no idea what Dale was going to do. He had no idea what I was going to do, and I had no idea what Melvin was going to do. We all made up our own mind to that. We never even exchanged any war stories or talked about what went on while I was in the service. Well, mostly because people wouldn't know what we was talking about, and some of the things we'd tell them they wouldn't believe anyway. And so we wanted to forget it as soon as we could, and that's what we did. Tried to forget. It took 30 years to forget, and then we still remembered. You never forget things that actually happened to you.
From the Chief of Naval Personnel to Mr. Dale Russell Adams, by virtue of your service in the Natoma Bay or her attached air squadrons, you are hereby authorized to wear as part of your uniform the Presidential Unit Citation Ribbon with star, one of which is transmitted herewith.
The government, through the GI Bill, offered us 3 years of a refresher course, and while you do that, we got $90 a month, and I helped to do it mainly. That's what we lived on, was $90 a month. Paid rent and ate and whatever. I know I wanted to farm, and the farming had changed in 3 years a bunch. I went to a school in Pleasant Hill. A fellow named Harold Tenney was the instructor. He gave us a short course on how farming was today. But one of our big problems was machinery. We couldn't buy machinery. It was all junked out, or factories hadn't gotten around to building it yet. I couldn't buy a tractor anywhere. So I did get a priority through the military to get a tractor that was, I could get it ahead of a person that was here during the war. All the factories had switched over to military. They didn't even make cars. There was 42 was the last Plymouth built, and the first one they built was 48 after that. The stuff that wasn't essential, they wouldn't build.
To all naval veterans of World War II being discharged in the 9th Naval District, upon leaving the Navy, you had an interview with your Civil Readjustment Officer who advised you of your rights and benefits as veterans of World War II. The interview was conducted as part of the Navy's established policy of maintaining an active interest in the welfare of naval personnel after their separation from service. The rating booklet accompanying this letter is forwarded to you in keeping with the Navy's policy. Describing the highest rating you held while on active duty, the booklet includes a concise statement of the skills you acquired while in service and is intended to present your qualifications to prospective employers. It is hoped that the booklet will be of use to you in becoming relocated in civilian life. My best wishes for success in the years ahead go with every one of you. Sincerely, A.S. Carpenter, Vice Admiral, U.S. Navy.
After World War II, everybody just come back and went to work, and they really didn't do anything. He took a GI Bill. He got a little education as far as raising hogs and the turkeys and what have you. He went back to school for that. When I was growing up, basically, the stories he would tell really didn't have anything to do with the actual fighting of the war. It was the off-type stuff during peacetime and so forth. He really never actually talked about the battles or anything of that nature, but he talked about all of his experiences that happened on base, or some of the things that happened here and around and what have you as he went through his basic and in the peacetime. He did talk a little bit about the Wasp when it got sunk, but basically 90% of what he talked about, and I don't think anybody ever came to the house from the time I can remember growing up and until whatever, that he didn't have to talk about the Navy. It was a very important part of his life, and spending 6.5 years there, it would be. I can see where his, military or background, my childhood, he was always very cautious. He had real good foresight to make sure you didn't get hurt, because he had foresight that something could happen. Don't do that because you're going to get hurt over there, that sort of thing. But the only thing I ever really noticed was like fire scenes and so forth. When he was around the fire department, he could bark orders pretty quick and pretty sharp because of the background he had with the war and so forth. You had to make split-second decisions, and they better be right.
The values Bessie taught served her family well: honesty, kindness, hard work, accomplishment, being modest about yourself, giving something back, and most importantly, her undaunted faith in God. After the war, she was kept busy with housework, gardening, farm chores, and visiting with her many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. 9 of her 10 children married and settled on a farm of their own, living within 20 miles of the family homestead.
My grandma Adams, Bessie, had a big family. She had a lot of responsibility, and I am totally convinced she is the one that kept that household running. She wrote to all the boys. She drew the kind of respect because of who she was, because of being the mother of all these boys and girls in this family, and that throughout their lives, when they were young, she was the central figure. But I think Grandma was the one that kind of kept the engine running, kept the whole thing operating. And even when I was young and going to Grandma's house and all the family was there, she was the one that was the center of attention. Everybody wanted to sit and talk with Grandma.
Mom did run the family. Dad, it was Mom said anything, Dad listened.
Mom was very faithful, and I know, like I say, she kept my brothers safe. I think her prayers was a main thing, and then she was just a Christian type person. You could just tell she was. And
the faith might be run by God, but I'll tell you my honest belief: you have a God within you. I have a God within me. He has a God within him, and that's you follow what the things that happened to me while I was in the service, that I have to believe that.
I'm sure Mom was pleased when they come home, because I know she probably prayed every night for those boys that was in harm's way.
One of the chaplains that was on our ship I got to know real well. He impressed me an awful lot, and I think that I was baptized in the church in Pleasant Hill before I went into the Navy. And I think from that standpoint, that had a deeper impact on me than the actual war.
Everybody has his own God. Everybody, each and every one, whether he knows it or not. You do things not out of your own human control, but because you were led to do that, whatever it is.
I think Dale talked a lot more about the war because it was something that he had been through. A lot of attention has been brought to World War II because of our veterans going so fast. The veterans of World War II are leaving us, you know, by the droves due to death. And so I think he had a story to tell. And I reached a point in life where it's time to tell that story, to let his kids and his grandkids know about what he did as a young man in the war. Dad did the same thing. I think it was a point in time that it's time to tell the story. And as you approach the end of life, I guess, it's stuff that you need to leave behind. It's experiences that others need to know about. That sense of urgency, I think, is what brings everybody to a point, or brings at least these gentlemen to the point to tell the story. I'm glad he did, too, because it's interesting stuff.
Well, I think today it's not an honor to serve your country. I mean, like it was, you know, you felt respect for all those before you that defended, that you felt a little bit in yourself to help do whatever you can. I didn't see any combat, but I was ready to, if it needed to be, and I know that he did. He did, all the other brothers did too. So I wanted to prepare myself to do as much as they was offering to do. And I think that's the way it is with all the people that service them. But now it's not like, personally I think they should still have some kind of draft, because some of these young people need to be in commitment and show, they don't show respect for their country so many times. That's not good.
Good. Wow. Thank you.
These boys, who were men, became warriors when the need arose, and then returned home to the peaceful life of farming or traveling or whatever freedom would allow. Their families did not know the extent of what they had endured. The similarities in this story echo across the nation and reflect an era gone by and the people of that era who became known as the greatest generation, asking not for fame or recognition, but merely that you not forget our veterans.
Yeah, well, no, we never felt that we were heroes. We never thought that we should have any more welcome him home than anybody else. The heroes were still over there. They're the ones that didn't make it through.
When I lay my head down every night and go to sleep in peace, I can stay there knowing all is well while you're standing on your feet, keeping watch, protecting shore to shore in the air and oceans too, defending freedom at all cost for the red, white, and the blue. Thank you, oh thank you, men and women brave and strong, to those who served so gallantly, we sing this grateful song. To the soldiers who have traveled on to countries far and near, in peace and war you paid the price for the cause you hold so dear, that we may wake each morning bright and know your country joins to sing. Thank you, oh thank you, men and women brave and strong. To those who serve so gallantly, we sing this grateful song. Thank you, oh thank you, men and women brave and strong. To those who served so gallantly, we sing this grateful song. To those who served so gallantly, we sing this grateful song.
Newton Minow, a World War II veteran of the China, Burma, and India theater, wrote to his family on June 12th of 1946. The greatest lesson I learned in the war is that the world is not large, but small, that the peoples are not different, but the same, and that peace is the greatest gift of all. We must pay all of our lives for peace. We must pay in understanding, in work, in hope, and in prayer. And we shall.